In this video, I'm going to show you how to propagate culinary garlic, and this is one of the experiments that we're running. So we are going to try to calculate to see if there is a difference in bulblet size and height, so growth rate. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to break this head of garlic apart, and then we're going to measure the cloves based on this size chart that I've given you. Historically in the course we would have done this by weight, but since you guys may or may not have access to a scale that does that small of measuring, I've decided to do this by size classes instead. So when we take a look at the size class chart, which if you print out your lab handout, it will be to scale. I made sure that it was going to be to scale on that handout. So the way that this is going to work is if our clove is this size or smaller, it gets a number 1, and then we're going to plant it in our number 1 column. If it is larger than this clove up to this size, we're going to give it a number 2. If it's larger than that clove up to this size, it gets the number 3. If it's larger than this clove up to this size, it gets the number 4. And then if it's larger than this size in general, we're going to call it number 5. The way that I purchased this garlic is the way that a lot of you would probably get garlic in this little kind of baggie. Sometimes they'll come with like 5 or 6 in a bag. Garlic of this size tends to run a little on the smaller side than what you would purchase if you were just going to get bulk garlic. So if you are going to the store and you're getting bulk garlic, just please note that you may end up with more in this size 5 class than what I'm going to have. But we'll just see what this turns out to be like. I'm going to try to do 20 of each. In this particular tray that I've selected, there should be space for 10, and then I'm going to do a second tray to get the 20. These will be grown here, and I will be providing you with weekly measurements on this for the height. So we'll measure each of these individuals every week for height. Okay, so let's get started with our clove of garlic here, and I'm just going to show you how to do this in general with breaking it apart, and then we are going to use our rooting powder. Again, this is an IBA-based powder, and the product is Bond Tone 2 that I'm using. It's also the active ingredient in Root Tone, and a couple of other commercial rooting powders that are on the market. This one does not have B1 in it. Sometimes you'll find them that also have B1, or sometimes they'll even have like a mycorrhizae inoculum in it. So we're going to start with this the same way that you would with your regular culinary needs. We're going to kind of break this apart and remove some of these papery scales from the outer edge so that we can break this apart. And you can see here, this is a really nice big basal plate that all of these little bulblets have formed out of. And as we break this apart, chunks of that basal plate are going to come with each of the individual bulbils. Just getting this paper thing apart. All right, there we go. Now we're starting to get all of these cloves apart. And we're just going to measure these with the size chart, and then we'll plant them according to where they belong on here. I'm not sure how many cloves of garlic or how many heads of garlic this is going to take in general. It may be that we don't have enough of the small size class, and if that's possible, then we will just throw that out because we really want our sample size to be a little higher. Oh, check that out. So this is what the bottom of that plate looks like, and you can see where there were several different pieces attached to it before. We're using the rooting hormone just to speed things up a little bit. Chances are that you probably don't need rooting hormone to get this to go. I know that sometimes if I even just leave garlic out too long, it just starts to grow. So you can use them that are already starting to grow if you don't want to use that for culinary purposes, or you can just go ahead and pick apart a new head. If you do this experiment at home, you're welcome to share your data with me, and we can include it probably in the class data. There's going to be a lot of confounding factors when you're doing it at home, like just even the pH and mineral content of what water you're using can change your results. And since you guys are over in Davis, your pH of your water in general ends up being a little bit higher than mine, and you have boron. Okay, so here we go. We've got all of our cloves here. And now, I can start with the smallest one, and we can see that, oh, look, this is the number 1. It fits really nicely on that little size chart. And so I'm just going to dip this bottom in the rooting hormone, and I'm going to put it right here in number 1. Let's see if we can find a number 2. Okay, yeah, this one looks like it could be a number 2. It's a little bit smaller than this, but it fits between those two. So it's smaller than this one, which means we're going to give it a number 2. Number 2. Okay. Also note that when I plant these, I'm only planting them about halfway, and then I'm letting the rest of the bulb stick up out of the soil, and that's important for making sure that they don't rot. Okay, look at this one. All right, this one looks like it fits within that inside black line, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a number 2. Okay, so we've got another one for number 2. Oh, let's look at this one. All right. Oh, that's definitely bigger than the number 2, and fits right into that number 3. So we're going to call this a number 3. Doing this by weight would be a little bit accurate because we're not really accounting for height in these, right? We're just kind of looking at overall size. Let me take off this papery piece so we can see this one for sure. Is it a... Okay, you know what? I'm going to give that one a solid 2 as well. Ooh, we've got a lot in the 2 category. Okay, let's just check out this one and see what this one is. Is it a number 3? You know what? I'd say that looks a little bit bigger than a number 3, but smaller than a number 4, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a number 4. I might not have anything in the 5 size class just because I did make this based on the largest size clove of one of the other heads. That looks like it could be a number 4. It doesn't look like it's big enough to be a number 5. So we'll call it a 4. This one looks like a pretty solid 3 to me, so we'll give it a 3. Okay, how about this one? Oh, that's definitely bigger than a 2 and smaller than a 3. We'll call it a 3. It looks like I may end up with a lot in this 2, 3, and 4 size class, and if that's the case, we might just end up using only those size classes. Okay, you know what? This looks bigger than a 2. I can definitely, we'll call that a 3. All right, let's see here. This one, definitely bigger than a 2. I'd call it a 3. With this one head, we might just end up with a whole bunch of 3s. Okay, here's another nice, that one's probably definitely bigger than a 1 and smaller than the 2 class, so we'll call that a 2. Here's another one that's like probably a 2. Yep, it's smaller than this, but definitely bigger than that, so we'll call it a 2. Here's another one. Yeah, let's call that one a 2. So this is really subjective, right? I mean, it really depends on what you see. That one's going to be a 1. So you are the decider in this case, and that is a source of human error, just based on whatever your decision making is. But that's why we've chosen these discrete data classes. You know what? That looks too big to be a 2 to me. I'm going to put that in the 3s. If it's really too close to call, I don't know, maybe just eat that one and don't worry about it, you know. Plant something else. We'll see how fast these grow. Okay, so here's another one for that. Oh, you know what? I think this was a 3. Let's double check that one. Oh, yep, that's a 3. That's a 3. We don't want to call that one a 4. We'll call that one a 3. I re-dipped because I dropped a bunch of rooting powder off of it. Okay, what about you? What are you going to be? See, this one to me is it's like right on the border there, right? Like it's a little bit It's a little bit over the edge though, so you know what, I'm going to call this one a 4, mostly because I don't have as many in that 4 size class, but that could have been a pretty solid 3, and depending on what your eye saw, this one is a good solid 3. You might have classified that one differently, right? This one is too big to be a 2. Let's call it a 3. And it looks like I'm going to have definitely enough for my size 3 class here. Oh, that's a good 2. And we'll just see how many cloves it takes to be able to fill these size classes. Here's another one. That's a pretty good 3 there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start picking apart some other cloves of garlic here and planting those pieces. But now you know how we're doing this, and every week I'm going to give you a measurement that goes along with this. So you can record that in your weekly observations, and I'll put a little chart in there. If it doesn't fit in, you know what, it's not going to fit in your handout. Actually, never mind, scratch that. Since it's not going to fit in your handout, I'll have to give you like a separate Excel spreadsheet sort of thing to fit this data in. Although I think we can probably do averages. But I'll just make this a second sheet, and I think that'll keep it straight better for you. All right, there you go. Garlic scaling. If you have any questions about how to use this size comparison chart, please email me or come to the discussion section, and we'll go over that again. But for right now, I think this is going to work pretty well as a proxy instead of by weight. I'll also let you know in that spreadsheet whether or not we ended up with these other 2 size classes. Just based on the 2 garlic cloves that I put together so far, we're not really going to have enough of this sample size to be able to compare to the other 3. So it's really going to be 2, 3, and 4 for our size classes. But I'll see what else I can scrounge up with the rest of my garlic. Okay, thank you.